you will be getting by mail. Everything's through the computer, and then usually with up to the last couple of days, it's pretty rapid. The problem I'm having is those that have been on the queue for a while, they seem to be lost in the shuffle. But usually the ones that have just applied will get a prompt reply within a few days that they've been approved. The loans now are only up to 150,000. It's still 3.75 for 30 years. And unless Congress decides on doing something, it's not going to move above 150 unless we're notified by Congress with new money. Because the thing is, there's not enough money in the pot to go around for. Usually disaster, the loans were up to 2 million. And that would have been the standard if it would have been a typical disaster. But right now, as it stands, over 10 million applicants went through the economic injury disaster loan, which is the disaster side of SBA.
I'm sorry.
And that's a lot.
I'm sorry, I hit broadcast.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone who's logging on. We'll get started in just a moment. We'll let everyone get into the webinar, and then we'll get underway in just a moment.
Good morning, Mr. Gaston. You connected?
All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Garrett Sheehan. I'm President and CEO of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce and Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce. We're really pleased to partner with Black Business Alliance this morning to put on this webinar for you. Take advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program. There's still time, exclamation mark on that for sure. We want everyone to be able to at least take a look at the program and see if they can take advantage, because for many businesses, it can be a lifeline. We'll get started in just a few moments with our panel that we have. We'll move to the next slide. I want to thank all of our sponsors that help us put on our programming here at the Chamber, including UI, Southern Connecticut Gas, and Connecticut Natural Gas, and then all of our investors as well here at the Chamber who have helped us continue to put on the programming that we have for you. We'll catch the slides up here, but also our streaming partners, other chambers of commerce that we work with on a regular basis, putting the programming on from a webinar standpoint for you. With that, I do want to introduce Anne Marie Knight. Anne Marie is the director of the Black Business Alliance, and as I mentioned, we're working together to put on this programming. So Anne Marie, good morning, and thanks for doing this in partnership with us. It's great to have you on.
Oh, good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me. This partnership is so important, and we believe wholeheartedly in it. So on behalf of the Black Business Alliance, I'd like to say good morning to everyone. We have been excited about the possibility of doing something in partnership with the Greater New Haven Chamber and with all of you who are on the call today. So those of you who are familiar with the Black Business Alliance may already know our mission, but our mission is really simply to empower, grow, educate, support, and strengthen Black businesses within our state. And so obviously with a goal around economic empowerment and economic viability, and that's the goal in the organization. We felt it was important to partner today to talk specifically about the PPP, because we noticed, as with many of you, that there were some issues. There was a lot of money available, but it didn't trickle all the way down to our community in the way that we would have liked it to. And so what we've been hearing from some of our constituents, some of our members, is really about the messaging and understanding what the rules and regulations were, thinking about the forgiveness portion, understanding the difference between a loan and what was forgivable. And so today we have the opportunity to really dig in and lift the veil, so to speak, and have all of your questions answered so that you can get the help that you need for your business. This is important in this time when so many businesses are struggling to survive. So this is helpful. So good morning again to everybody.
All right, thank you, Anne Marie, and so glad to partner with the Black Business Alliance. And I should say Howard Hill, he's Vice Chair of the Chamber and also one of the founding members of the Black Business Alliance. And I know Howard's going to join us a little bit later on this morning, but he was excited to see us put something like this on, and more partnerships to come as well. So now I want to introduce our panel. Just a housekeeping issue here. You can put questions you have into the chat box, and we're going to try to get to as many of those questions as possible. We're going to continue to go through. I'm going to have each of our panelists say a few words, and then we'll just start working through the questions as we get going. So first, let me introduce Julio Casiano, and Julio is with the SBA. And Julio, good morning. I know it's been a busy several months for you, and still many unanswered questions, but you've been on top of this from the very beginning. I think we had one of our first webinars back in March.
Yes.
You were a part of that, and a lot has changed. A lot of money has changed hands as well. And part of our reason for being here this morning is that there is still money left in the PPP program for people to apply if they have not already. So good morning.
Thank you again for having me here on behalf of SBA, Anne Marie, and the Black Business Alliance. We've been having a number of meetings in terms of how SBA can help the small business and the Black community, also Hispanic community, in terms of making sure that these programs touch and reach all small businesses. It doesn't matter if you're a mom and pop and your sales are only $50,000 a year. You need to reach us because these programs are made for you. I know that in the beginning, when these programs were launched, there was a lot of negative advertisement about big corporations applying for loans, et cetera. But towards the end, those that had been remedied by the administrator and Treasury. And right now, our focus really is small minority-owned businesses and non-for-profits in Connecticut. And you know, when I first started talking about it, the PPP program back in March with here at the Chamber, we were only just dealing with a couple of $1 million. Well, as of last week, we already have in Connecticut, in terms of PPP, $6.6 billion just on PPP. I'm not even talking about the economic injury disaster loan, which is the EIDL, but just that alone. And just to put that in perspective, in a whole year, SBA in Connecticut roughly does close to $300 million. So when you look at $6.6 billion, and in the history of SBA in Connecticut, on the high side, roughly $300 million, you could see the impact the federal government, through the Small Business Administration, has had in almost every small business in the state of Connecticut. And saying that, there's still money left in the PPP program. We still have roughly about $100 billion left. There is a sunset date, which is August 8th. That is the hard set date in Congress that the PPP program will eventually just shut down. And so if you do not apply, if you do not speak with our partners such as the Women's Business Center, SBDC, SCORE, the Chamber, the Black Business Alliance, then you're doing yourself a favor as a business owner, because if you procrastinate right now, you're going to lose out on this program. This program originally was supposed to have ended June 30. Congress did an extension through August 8, and that's where we're at right now. So again, you'll probably in the next few minutes listen to more information. I don't want to take much time now, but I just want to get across that the program is still open, and please speak with one of our partners.
Great, thank you, Julio. Let me turn to Kathy Graves. Kathy is with the City of New Haven. Kathy, I know you've been working really closely with a lot of businesses. The city also has a program now, and you're also still encouraging businesses in New Haven to get involved in PPP if they have not. And we got you on mute right now.
You're muted.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Okay, yes, we continue to encourage everyone to apply for PPP. We let them know it is available, but also we rolled out another loan for New Haven-based businesses, New Haven-based businesses and women-owned businesses. It is a forgivable loan. It's 4%. It is interest only for the first 12 months, and there's no application fee. This is a loan that we brought partners together, the Community Foundation, HEDCO, the Amor Pro Per Fund, and the City of New Haven. We felt we needed a loan pool that would always be available to small businesses. So anyone looking for a loan, feel free to go to the HEDCO website. I encourage you and look for the partnership loan. It's a very simple application, and we're looking at the holistic person, the holistic business. So we know that people have suffered over the past few months. However, we're willing to work with you. So please come out and apply for the partnership loan. And we also, throughout the year, offer technical assistance. We take people through how to run a business. We run specific webinars for businesses during this period. During the year, we provide access to capital. So we're here as a resource. Just call us at City Hall.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And we'll come back to you in a moment. Let me turn now to Joe Williams. And Joe, I think some people probably looked at the program early on in its early formation, and maybe they decided, the rules were too difficult. It wasn't flexible enough to match up with their business, maybe not enough payroll. But Congress did make changes to PPP about midway through. And so if someone hasn't looked at the program, I would assume that you tell them, look at it again, because the rules have changed. It's a lot more flexible now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think the PPP has always been flexible. Actually, what we see now that the Paycheck Protection Plan, of all the programs that are out here, this is a loan program that can become 100% forgivable. I think that is the significance for a minority business to take advantage of. It's already hard enough to be in business and then seek some financing. And this is an unprecedented time where there's leniency in the way you qualify for the particular loans. Unlike the EIDL or the EIDL, which is credit driven in the very beginning, the PPP is not. And the rules are a little bit different. The paperwork, the streamline of the paperwork is different. I mean, truly, really dealing with your profit and loss statement, showing that if you are LLC or another type of corporation, how you file your Schedule C's and things of that nature. So you're dealing with your net income, which is truly saying if you're a sole proprietor or a person that is a one-person outfit. And I think this is a problem with a lot of our people. They feel that, well, maybe I'm not including myself, but you, the owner, you need to get paid. You have a salary. So the PPP is an exact program that you should be taking advantage of. And unfortunately, due to misinformation, I do believe, and the lack of understanding of the program, that many of our people have not applied. And what the government has done, and the partners on the resource partners on this call and others are looking to do, is to encourage everyone in the sound of my voice to apply. The SBDC, the Small Business Development Center here in Connecticut, there's 14 advisors here to help you for free. You just have to reach out to us directly, and we will walk you through the process. It's very simple. It is not a lot of paperwork. I think under all these programs, this is probably the simplified way of SBA giving out loans to businesses in our country. So what I tell clients, I said to this client earlier this morning, that really we shouldn't seek money necessarily when we need it. That is a kind of a myth I tell small businesses. You want to establish your financial footing when you don't need it. So when you do need it, you're not searching for the money. Here's an unprecedented time during this pandemic. We know that there is an unknown. This is not going away. We'll probably run into next year of dealing with COVID-19 because we don't think that there's going to be a vaccine before the spring. And so with that being said, those small businesses that are needing capital, needing to pay their employees, trying to keep their doors open, worrying about how do I pay this bill and that bill, here at the PPP and the EIDL, these are ways that your tax dollars are working for you, the people, which is what this country is founded on, we the people. So at that being said, we the people need to engage with our government. This is not a time that we should shy away from working with the powers that be. I know traditionally in the past in this country, the way minorities have been treated, and sometimes we feel that the government is not our friend. But in this case, the trillions of dollars being put into our economy to stabilize our economy in this country is significant, and we should take every opportunity and every advantage that is available to us. And what I found in New Haven in particular, there's a number of companies that are doing pivots, you know, from a brewery now making disinfectant hand sanitizer, to the takeout restaurant saying, I don't need to make money just to have a sit down restaurant. You know, I had a wing, chicken wing client doing several hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last 6 months. His business has exploded, you know, just because the need that has arisen out there. And now he's seeking those dollars for his expansion, that he was one of those individuals afraid to ask the question or ask for the help. And now, because that Congress has extended this to August 8th, we have just a few weeks left, but we encourage everyone to reach out to our partners, my department, SCORE, or the Women's Center, or SBA, to come to us directly, or even the city of New Haven, to say, hey, I need a helping hand. I don't understand the process. The application seems cumbersome. Can you help me? And the answer is yes. And remember, all these services that we've described this morning are free, you know, and that's the key and operative word. You have nothing to lose, but you have everything to gain. And remember, the PPP is a 100% can qualify to be forgiven. That is significant. I don't know about you, but if someone was giving me $5,000 or $10,000 and I'm in a small business and my gross sales is only 50,000, that's a significant amount of money being injected into a small business. So we should really look and take advantage of that. Even the nonprofits that are in the area, you guys are qualified as well. So don't feel and disqualify yourself without checking out what is available to you first.
Great, thanks, Joe. And it's going to turn to Ives Gaston with Renegon Accounting, but I think we might have just lost him here for a moment ago. So we'll see if we can get him back on there. And again, everyone can put your questions into the chat. We'll start going through some of these. And I actually we did have a question already about a list of capital providers that are not your traditional banks. And so I just ask the panelists too, if you know of some, if you want to put those in the chat for everyone out there, and then we can list those off when we get to the end. Joe, I'll pick up on a point that you, I think we're alluding to too many times when it comes to Black-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses. There's oftentimes a catch, or maybe that's a perception and a concern that, oh yeah, it sounds like a great government program, but there's something out there that's going to come back at me. I think people worry about that with PPP because it's a loan program that becomes, that we all talk about becoming a grant, but there is a step there for it to become a grant. Can you maybe just talk about that? Any business right now is worried about getting saddled with more debt. But it is, from what we've seen, and we've had businesses go all the way through it now, very easy to be able to get that loan converted to a grant.
Absolutely, Garrett. This is something unprecedented. The PPP, the way it's been designed by Congress and being implemented, it's less about the credit of the business. They're not even looking at that. What they're looking at, do you have the proper paperwork? And the paperwork they're talking about is the back office, which every business should already have had. Unfortunately, when the pandemic happened, many small businesses or many minority businesses just weren't prepared. They weren't prepared necessarily with the taxes for 2019. They didn't have all of the documentation for the profit and loss statement, which you actually need to apply. Just to answer a question, I use Cabbage a lot, a non-bank lender online. The process takes less than 5 days of approval. The 10 or so businesses I've sent to Cabbage, 5 days they've been approved. And within 2 weeks, they received the money. And what the major requirement was, did they apply for their 1040? Do they have their Schedule C? Do they understand and can they provide a profit and loss? And even if you have not filed, say you filed an extension for July 15 and you have not yet done your profit and loss statement, my department, myself, we can help put together those financial documents that you will submit. Just know you need to keep that record so when you do apply, everything matches up. But it's a very simple process. Even the calculation of the PPP, many people were saying, well, how do I, it's confusing. Well, it's very simple. If you look at your general income for the year, say it was $100,000, and of that $100,000, you're saying that was your payroll, and you divide it by 12, and you just simply multiply it by 2.5. That is the simple formula of how you are determined what your PPP amount will actually be. Once you then receive that, you're simply going to track how you spend, and there is specific guidelines of the PPP. In the beginning, you had to spend 75% of that toward payroll. There's been some new guidance. It's now down to 60%. You can now use it for other things, such as utilities and rent for your business specifically. And it's also went from an 8-week program. You can now utilize it up to 24 weeks. So it gives you more time to expend those dollars. And I think that was a great concern to many small businesses because they said, I don't have enough time to spend it. And what Congress has now done is actually extend that time. So we really can't use that as an excuse, but we want to get in before the deadline. And I encourage you, really do not wait till the last minute because the banks, traditional and non-traditional lenders, need time to process your loan because it has to be uploaded to the SBA and for that to come back to receive the actual approval. So we encourage you from now and really into next week to really seek out one of the partners, apply. If you have questions, you can go to our website at ctsbdc.com, you can go to SBA's website to find another partner such as SCORE or the Women's Center. We are the free consultants or advisors to you that will help you fill out this paperwork. So you are definitely not alone.
And Joe, that's a great point. August 8th is the deadline, but that's really the deadline for the loan to get approved. So you got to kind of backtrack from there. And we saw when it was thought that June 30th was going to be the deadline, many banks set a pre-deadline of maybe, let's say 5 days before, so that they could ensure they could get those loans approved. So Joe's point is very well made. Don't wait till August 8th. You need to do it before that date. Kathy, let me turn to you. You work with a lot of small businesses. What are some of the documentation forms, things that people need to work on to be able to apply for, whether it's the loan program that you're working with or also PPP? What types of internal documents or information should businesses make sure they have ready to go?
Sorry, I was on mute. An income statement, a cash flow statement, understand your tax returns, of course, your clearance from DRS, ensuring that you don't owe any taxes from the state. But one of the challenges that we have found with the smaller businesses is the back office. Keeping that back office in order is so very important. And those are very basic records that you should keep on an ongoing basis. Through our program, we actually pay for anyone that goes through our program. We'll pay for the first 5 hours to set up with a bookkeeper, to set up your books because of the importance of having that income statement, the tax returns, cash flow. How do you know how much of a loan you need if you cannot project your cash flow? or if you don't know historically what your cash flow needs have been. So those are the records that I really strongly encourage all small businesses to keep. We're here to help. We work with Joe very closely. All I can say is encourage you to please reach out to us because we're here. And as Joe said, we're a free resource. We're available to help you. To help you understand, one of the things that we also encourage is that, yes, you have an accountant and or a bookkeeper helping you, but understand those numbers. You don't have to know the details of the day-to-day bookkeeping, but you need to know what's going in your statements. Understand what those incomes and expense statements are saying. So once again, we're here, we're available, and our service is free.
Kathy, if I'm sitting on the line today and I go, gosh, my don't have my financial documents in place, or I can't give you those numbers right now. While that's a challenge, it's something that can be overcome to get into this program if they work with someone like you or with Joe, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just reach out to us. We're here to help. We are a free resource, just like Joe. He is our resource. So we work very closely together.
Great point. So don't let that stop you right now. If you feel like your finances are not in great shape, now's a great time to start to get them in shape, and you can also still apply for this program. Julio, let me go ahead.
Add to that, I think there have been lessons learned throughout this process, the importance of record keeping. So I just encourage everyone to ensure their back office is straight.
Right. And Anne-Marie, yeah, if you want to start going through some of the questions that we're getting here in the chat, we can throw them open to the panelists. I know there's been a few in there. I think we've got Joe on mute there. There we go.
Finished it. So one of the questions that I came across is, how do we calculate FTEs for a 24-week period if you only have funds for payroll to last for 14 weeks?
Under the new guidance, they basically there is now an easy form for forgiveness, and so I advise the person. I just included the two websites for them to pull down the forms. That'll help them out. It's easy now. It's only a one-pager and again, as I had talked to Garrett earlier, I hate to say this, but everything that right now we're using, whether it's for forgiveness, whether it's for application, might change depending on what's going to come out of Congress's rendition of the Fourth CARES Act. And so for those that are kind of concerned about submitting their forgiveness applications, there hasn't been any guidance provided to the lenders by Treasury or SBA, and it has to do basically because of the changes that are coming through Congress. So please bear with us because we might not have any guidance. So for those that are filling out applications in terms of forgiveness, figuring out your wages and all of this it might change. So again, hold off. I know we're all working on those calculations based on existing forms, but things could be changing down the next couple of days. And then when the final rendition of this are provided to lenders, then the lenders will be working with you on all of those documents that you will need to provide to them. But for right now, just do what you're doing, continue, because the program has been extended through December 31st. So in terms of rushing in for your forgiveness, that ended when the third CARES Act update was done back in the beginning of June. So just hold off. The banks have been calling us asking for instructions on forgiveness, and we've been telling them the same thing. So you're up to date as far as the banks are also. There is no portal. You can't, some of the banks might be taking your information, but in reality, instructions as to what the next steps are still in hold.
Before Anne-Marie goes to a couple more questions, let me just jump on that, Julio, because I think it's a great point. We definitely want you to get your application in for PPP if you have not yet. don't wait for the deadline on that. But just a nuanced point, things have changed so much, and they change every time Congress meets. For other deadlines, you should actually wait until the deadline to file, because you just want to make sure that not a more beneficial rule has come out between when you actually file and the deadline. So once you're in the program, it doesn't make sense
Right.
to rush to get to that deadline.
Right. The December 31st deadline is for those businesses that have applied and are in the program. So the program is still open for those that want to apply. Whether you're going to get $5,000 or $100,000, the limit for the PPP program is $5 million. So there's a lot of leeway between how much a small business needs and what can they borrow. So again, don't be hesitant, apply. The forgiveness is after you get the money. That's where you apply to have your loan or whatever it is that you got forgiven, so you don't have to pay any money back. So the forgiveness part of it is where there's still a lot of, I would say, ambiguity in terms of getting the banks ready with what the process is. And that right now is not what we're going to talk about here. Our mission here is to get you to apply.
Great. Anne-Marie, I'll let you keep going with some of the Q&A.
And this is just a general question for the panel. Can you discuss the types of restrictions that PPP funds should not be used for?
One of the major restrictions is to pay existing debt. You cannot use PPP. Understand what PPP stands for: Paycheck Protection Plan. So meaning this is to get you, to encourage you, one, to pay yourself or your employees over a duration of time. That is what the main gist of the PPP program is all about. It is not for you to go buy machinery, equipment. It is not for you to buy inventory. If you're in a restaurant or you're a manufacturer, it's not for that. Or it is for you to really pay your employees. That's the main thrust of it. 60% of this money.
Right. Let them know about the 60%, Joe.
60% must, in order for you to get that forgiveness and qualify, you must spend 60% of that PPP funds received for payroll. Very important. And then there's a couple things.
Right. And the other 40% is for also specific for rent and utilities and for interest on certain types of loans like a mortgage. So they're very specific on the other 40%. Up through June 30, it was 75. It was 75-25. They increased it to 60-40, allowing the small businesses to use a bigger chunk of the proceeds for rent, because rent's a major issue especially in our inner cities where the landlords want to get paid. So you can use part of that PPP up to that 40% to cover rent.
Great point.
Someone asked, is there a limit to the amount of exceptions that you can have?
Exceptions in what sense?
I think this was in regards to the forgiveness portion. It just says, is there a limit to the amount of exceptions that you can have?
Well, the $100,000 limit is based on salary. And so you could have a number of people earning over 100,000. It's capped at 100,000. It is at 40 hours per pay period. As an FTE, you can include your part-timers, but rather to try to explain it all on this, I did do the links that you have the ability to go in and pull up the forms. That will explain something about it. I'll also include the calculator in a minute. I'll include the calculator as a link. That'll help those that want to figure out, what do I do? I'm a proprietor. How do I calculate my salaries and all this? And I'll include that link.
Great.
So we should say with the employees too, you can, if you have employees who you've currently laid off, you can bring them back, those would be counted within. And then also, I know sometimes we've had questions about what if an employee won't come back, or there was a situation where you had someone in that position, they retired. You can still count that, but using a different person that you could hire in. Is that correct, Joe and Julio? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, you're saying it correctly. I mean, you must document if you offer employment back, say to your furloughed employee, and they refuse to come to work. You need to document that. That is required to document that. But you can replace that. The PPP is not necessarily tied to a specific person. It's tied to the FTE, and there's calculators and information in the guidelines that we could share with you. Website, you go to SBA website, I think the guidelines are there. If you go to ctsbdc.com, there's the guidelines for the PPP on our website as well. And they'll answer a lot of these questions that are coming up too as well.
Excellent.
Also, the AICPA has a great site with an Excel calculator. We can't recommend, as a federal agency, but go on to aicpa.org, and you will see a calculator Excel sheet that you can use. The WBC also has a calculator to help determine your salaries too. And that would be the WBDC.org in Connecticut. They also have a calculator. So there's some Excel sheets out there that you can use that can help you come up with your numbers for your employees. So you might not have to reinvent the wheel, but go on to the AICPA and also the WBDC.
Let me introduce now Ives Gaston, who is joining us from Rinnegan Accounting, managing partner there. And Ives, thanks for jumping on with us. Question for you, what are some of the issues that you're seeing with clients, maybe some of the barriers that are keeping people from applying or wanting to get involved with the PPP program?
Yes, it's Eve. Basically, with the PPP program, I have a lot of sole proprietors and a lot of artists, and the main issue for them is during before COVID-19 is just getting their documents kind of organized and getting their tax return done. There's several people who, missed the July 15th deadline and were not able to file their taxes on time. Essentially, we're dealing with people who are kind of disorganized. So I try to streamline getting their taxes done first before they apply and kind of walk them through their Schedule C. In other cases, there's individuals who have payroll, but have not had a regular reoccurring payroll on a normal basis, and so it becomes a little bit more difficult to calculate how much they want to apply for and given the calculation. So we based it off the 100K mark for several individuals.
Thanks, and apologize about the mispronunciation, Eve, so thank you very much. Let me throw out there the EIDL. I know we're mostly talking about the PPP program, but it can get very confusing because we have lots of different programs out there. So Julio, the EIDL is just through SBA, so maybe you can give us an update on where we are and if people still want to get into that.
I'll duck and take all the hits on that one. But let me just bring you up to date on the economic injury disaster loan. That is the bread and butter disaster loan program for SBA. The PPP was enacted, and it's enacted by Congress. It's a law, a program that was established by them. It's driven through the banks and overseen by SBA. But the EIDL program, which is that is the SBA's program when it comes for time of disaster. Originally, that program, if you would have applied back in March or in April, early on, you would have seen that you could have probably gotten up to $2 million under this program. However, because of the volume, and remember, this is not a unique disaster for Connecticut. Usually, in the past, disasters are unique to counties and towns. For instance, a hurricane or a sudden tornado SBA would come in and provide assistance. And so there were enough funds to cover specific disasters. Now, when the pandemic occurred back on March 16, Connecticut was one of the first states that was approved under the disaster declaration by the White House and the administrator. Right after that, 50 states were included in this disaster. And so from a micro size where you could do tranches of 2 million, all of a sudden there was not enough in the pot to be able to support across the nation. Right now, as it stands, over 10 million applications were processed through the EIDL program, not the PPP program, which meant that when the administration looked at the dollars at hand, the program then was limited to $150,000. Now, saying that, Congress also enacted under the CARES Act an additional kind of soft landing for small businesses, which was this thing called the EIDL Advance. The EIDL Advance was an immediate cash where you could have gotten up to $10,000 per employee. $1,000 per employee up to $10,000, which would have meant if you had 10 employees, you would have received an immediate so-called grant up to $10,000. Well, that money, because that was again money that was provided through Congress, lapsed as of last week. So if you go onto our SBA website, the advanced portion of the economic injury disaster loan is no longer there. However, you still can apply for the economic injury disaster loan. You can apply not only for the economic disaster loan, but you could also apply for the PPP. So you could actually have two distinct SBA-driven loans right now, one through the bank, which is the PPP program, and the economic injury disaster loan. Now, the economic injury disaster loan, again, anyone that's on listening to this program today should also apply. You will be able to get up to a 30-year loan at 3.75%. And as I said before, up to $150,000. It is a very simple program. You're not being asked for financial statements. You're not being asked for accountant tax returns. All you're going to be doing is putting in your revenue and your cost of goods and how many employees you have. The program is an intuitive program tied to a lot of background research that will determine how much you will be able to borrow under that amount of money. It is credit driven, unlike the PPP. The PPP program is not credit driven. There is no background check. Under the EIDL program, there is a credit check. However, the standards for this are very liberal. You really have to have poor credit to go not to be able to get approved under the EIDL program. So again, apply for the EIDL. Now that's through the SBA's website, and I'll put it down in a minute. It's basically sba.gov/disaster, sba.gov/disaster. So don't think that you could only apply for the PPP. You can also apply for the EIDL, and let me tell you, they will be you will be more than grateful to know that not only do you have the long-term support through because the EIDL program is to support you through the next 6 months, because it's basically to provide you with working capital, operating working capital for 6 months, where the Paycheck Protection Program is really tuned to providing you money for payroll. The economic injury disaster loan will give you that hard cash that you need to survive for the next 6 months.
Thanks, Julio. Anne-Marie, do we have a few more questions in there? Or Joe, you wanted to?
Yeah, there's a couple things I saw in the chat. One, if you have a negative net income, you are not eligible for PPP. So let me be clear. The Schedule C, for those sole proprietors and those who file LLCs in Schedule C, we look at line 31, which if it's positive income, you can apply for PPP. If you are claiming negative income, you cannot file for PPP. You will be denied. So I want to make clarity on that. There's also another question, is the emergency EIDL money a grant or a loan? It is a loan, which Julio described. It is a 3.75% loan to small businesses. is 2.75 for nonprofits over a 30-year period of time.
Great. And Anne Marie, did Joe just take care of all the questions on them? Yeah, we'll get you on mute there.
So there's one that needs some clarification, and it's around the use of back pay, whether or not you can use PPP for back pay. And if you can use it for back pay, does it need to be associated solely with the pandemic? If we could provide some further clarification there.
It's for forward paying. It's from the date that you get the proceeds, you then start your payroll. Technically, it was for an eight. The way the formula would have been, and it's still there when you apply in the one-page sheet, is you're going to be using your last year's salary, which whatever your total revenue for payroll was last year. You're going to be dividing that by 12 times 2.5 times, which will give you that 8.5 week payroll. That is what you would get from the lender, and that's what you're going to be using on day one going forward. Now, what that means now, because they extended it through December 31st, you have really from all the way from July through December to decide which of your pay periods, when your employees are coming back and when you start counting for your payroll.
Yves,
Thank you.
let me ask you this question. How are you seeing your clients balance all these different programs? We've talked about 3 different programs here today. There's also an employer retention tax credit that we're not getting into, but that's an alternative to PPP as well. So how are you seeing clients deal with all these different options that they're facing?
Well, I presented the pros and cons. You know, the EIDL, that's the simplest one for them, and they've been able to apply for that and receive the funds. The PPP, I would essentially say, has been the more difficult one, especially going back to Joe, because we had individuals who didn't do their Schedule Cs, and they wanted to count their drawers versus what's on their profit and loss. And so, you know, just to get them down the line to apply for their PPP loan, you know, we had to do a rough estimate of, you know, their 1040 Schedule Cs.
Mm-hmm. Anne Marie, any other questions out there?
Absolutely. So that we're going back to, I think, so part of this is the sole proprietor piece, but how much can an owner withdraw from PPP funds if the business is an LLC? And do you calculate it based on the K-1 form or the amount of money that you withdrew last year? I think some of that's been answered, but we need some clarification.
Well, if they're a proprietor and they're submitting a Schedule C, it's remember what SBA and Treasury wants to see is consistency, whatever they were doing last year and how they were getting paid as a self-employed individual. So if they were doing drawings once a week, they would continue to do drawings once a week. If they did it monthly, they would do it monthly. It's consistency so that you'll be able to verify from what you submitted to the lender. Remember that you're submitting to the lender a package to get the money. And then at the end of your period when you've used the money, you're supposed to now submit proof of how you use that money. Hopefully the information's similar so that you avoid having questions as to how the use of the funds were. So if you started with the funds to be used for on a regular payroll cycle or withdrawal cycle, because most owners use drawings, they don't pay themselves as employees. They use a drawing, and I draw every 2 weeks. Then hopefully when they get the money, they'll be doing the same thing, and then provide the lender with the copy of the check that they drew $1,000 every 2 weeks or whatever the money was.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of really useful and helpful information that's happening this morning. And I would just like to remind everybody that this video will be on the Chamber's website, I think as early as either later today or tomorrow. And we'll be able to come back for it for reference because there's a lot of helpful information here.
Can I
Now,
speak
I
one?
wanted to just mention that if you did get the advance, the idle advance, that technically, and it gets a little hazy and kind of confusing in terms of the word grant for the advance. If you only have an advance given by SBA, then that becomes a grant. You don't have to pay that back. If you get an economic injury disaster loan and the advance, you don't have to pay it back. The economic injury disaster loan, yes, you do. That's a term loan, 30 years, 3.75. But the advance, you don't have to pay it back. Here's where it gets complicated. If you got a PPP loan, the Payroll Protection Program loan, and you got the advance, then the advance has to be added back to the PPP side of your loan, and that's going to be deducted, and you will probably have a loan that would be netted out because of the advance. And that is nothing to do with SBA. That's the way Congress built in the rules for the program.
Good point.
Very good point. Someone mentioned that they read about potential legislation that would expand the eligibility for PPP to other nonprofits beyond the 501c3. Does anyone know if there's anything new in this area?
Well, in the HEROES Act, they did include the chambers of 501c6s. So it's a congressional issue. They're the ones, it's not SBA, it's not Treasury. So my advice is if you're a specific 501c3, an association, a member organization, and you felt you were excluded from this process, talk to your congressionals, and they're the ones that can include your type of association or your IRS status into the program. But as it stands right now, 501c3s, regular businesses, partnerships, corporations, those are the only ones that are in there, and veteran groups that have a specific ruling under the 501c. I don't know the exact number. They're also included. So again, if you think you are being excluded because of your type of non-for-profit, especially if you're a lobbying group, that's been the issue. If you're a lobbying group, that becomes the kind of the issue about whether or not you can apply for any of these programs.
And I can just say, so the chamber is a C6, so that's still, as Julio said, still has not been allowed in. I think, as Julio mentioned, there was a lot of concern about large lobbying groups would then be eligible. But it is an issue that Congress is put into one proposed bill that's passed the House, but obviously it's not a final bill or has been passed as law to this point. So still an open question. I think at this point, Anne-Marie, I think we've covered most of the questions out there. I know Frank did just mention you come back on as an employee through the PPP funding, the employee would drop their unemployment. It's not a double dip situation like that. Maybe I think there's one more question that just popped up, Anne-Marie.
Now, Garrett, here's the interesting thing about the employee. If the employee does not want to come back to work, or make sure the employer documents all of this, because now they can include that employee in the forgiveness. So you can have coverage to include that employee because that employee refused to come back to work. So under the updates in the CARES Act, just keep records. They do require you to make contact with Department of Labor to make sure that you have notified them about that employee not wanting to come back to work. But then at the end, it benefits you that that employee did not come back to work, and you get the benefit of the forgiveness for that employee.
Excellent. And here's another question. I think it's a great question. If an employee does not reach the 75% of the pay threshold that was due to them during the PPP period, how do you calculate their previous hourly wage if they were a tip employee?
Well, the new formula is 60% now, so they just have to meet the threshold of 60%.
And so that's of the total grant that's been given of what you pay out. 60% you have to make sure is paid to your payroll, And that's to get it forgivable. If you don't, then you still have it. It's part of the loan, which is at a very low rate as it is.
And again, Garrett, and for all of the participants here, all of this can change. There is congressional movement to do more of a forgiveness where you don't have to be submitting all these documents. But again, I can't tell you what's going to happen. You got to stay tuned to what comes out of the floor in Congress, the Senate, and then the White House. But there is movement to lessen the requirements for the PPP program in terms of reporting.
Sure. And one more question in regards to principal versus interest accrued on the PPP, and is that forgivable?
Yes, if at the point of forgiveness, you're including all of that.
We'll get
Now,
close
if you do, so if the loan is not forgiven, say it flips into a term loan, you do have a deferral period, but then the interest starts accruing just when the loan converts into a paying loan, which would happen towards the end of this fiscal year.
Let me start to close things out with and turn to each of our panelists, and I'll leave kind of with this question that you can address, each of you, is it's just process. I see someone said no one answers the phone at Department of Labor. I had an email from someone this morning who said they're getting the PPP loan. They went through a non-traditional lender, but it was still a really long process to get all of that put in, and they're hoping to get their money in the next week or so. There's lots of nightmare stories. I know there's lots of people who have been able to get it more quickly at times too. But any just kind of comments on process, how people wade through all of this? And Yves, maybe I'll start with you, and then we'll go through the rest of the panelists.
I would recommend just because of COVID-19 and going forward, individuals kind of get a monthly routine in place in organizing their documents. So, you know, in situations, if you want to apply for a loan in the future or wherever it may be for your business, you have, you know, a payroll set in place, especially if you're a S Corp. If you are LLC, or sole proprietorship, you know, making sure that you have your bookkeeping in place, especially for situations where individuals had to apply for the EIDL. There was a time period that they wanted to report your gross income. So that was very essential for a lot of individuals. So making sure that they have timely bookkeeping, accurate records is essential, not only for now, but for the future.
Thank you, Yves. Thank you for joining us. Kathy, kind of last thoughts from you. Also, remind us again how to get in touch with the loan program that the city has. I think we still got you on mute there.
First of all, I want to say I'm going to agree with Yves. Documentation, record keeping, just staying on top of that makes it very easy for you to apply to any loan. And the partnership loan is available at headco.com. Just pull up the partnership loan. It's a one-pager. It's very simple. Income and expense summary, cash flow, 2 years of your tax return, and clearance from the DRS. Very simple. It's only 4%. First year is interest only. The maximum loan is $25,000, and it is specific to New Haven-based and women-owned businesses. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that if you don't want to go through the EIDL process or the PPP process. But record keeping is very key.
Thanks, Kathy. We appreciate it. And keep us up to date on the loan and the forgivable portion of that. Joe, just like Kathy, technical assistance is something that you have to offer for anyone who wants to take part in one of these programs.
Yeah, Garrett, thanks for having me. Once again, I'll give you the website. I did put on the chat at ctspdc.com, the Connecticut Small Business Development.com. If you want to have free advisement from one of the 14 advisors in the state of Connecticut to help you with all these programs, including any SBA program and PPP or EIDL and the city's program, feel free to reach out to us. It is a free service to you. We are here to help you. You know, we work 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. So just feel free to reach out to us. We'll walk you through all those cash flow numbers, helping you with your taxes, helping you file that information and getting everything. So it doesn't have to be as cumbersome as you think. We're the ones who are trying to shed some light and some clarity and guide you through this maze, if you will. Being a state employee, if you're having problems with some state departments, such as Department of Labor, you can reach out to us directly as well. We do have some back channels at some times that we can help you with that as well. So once again, thank you. And please, I encourage you, reach out, reach out, reach out.
Thanks, Joe. Julio?
Hey, under the PPP program, let me just tell you this, the lenders have 10 days. That's in the regulation, 10 days to close. And 20 if it's the borrower that's making the mistakes. So if your loan is not closed and it's more than 10 days, please email me, call me, and I will help you with that process. But it's 10 days from the date that the loan's approved on the SBA's website by the lender. You got 10 days. So that's very good in terms of trying to get these lenders to close these loans as quickly as they get them. So if they're 30 days, that should not happen. Now, on the economic injury disaster loan, I could tell you that's a little bit different because that is an SBA underwriting process. So from the time you do apply, that can take up to 30 days for you to get some kind of a response from SBA because that is an underwriting term loan program, unlike the PPP. So just be aware of that. And again, I want to thank the Black Business Alliance, Anne Marie, again, for having SBA and inviting me here today. And then Garrett with the Chamber, we're kind of linked on the hip because this is information that's very valuable. Honestly, you know, and again, the money is here for you, for the businesses. It's to help you run and operate your business. Technically, as you heard from Joe, the money's not to kind of go out and buy me my new truck or improve my air conditioning system. Is really to keep your business in operation during this disaster. The pandemic is what you were doing before the pandemic, is what you'll be continuing to do through the PPP program and the EIDL program. If there's any other loan programs that are coming out in the next week or two, because that's what Congress is now meeting on, it'll probably have the same kind of structure, is to help you as a small business survive the next couple of weeks and months. So again, stay tuned to the Chamber, the Black Business Alliance, to the SBDC, and even SBA. Go to our website. We're constantly, and if you're not, include yourself in our calendar so that we send you updates and information on what's happening. But we need to be in tune to information. Information is important, and I think we need to share it as a group, you know, because that's the only way we're going to survive through this. Individually, we're not. So again, thank you.
Thanks, Julio. And it's been great putting this program on. I'll turn it over to Anne Marie. And Anne Marie, we've been really proud to partner with Black Business Alliance on putting on this program, and great panelists for participating with us today.
Thank you so much, Garrett. It's been a privilege to partner with you and with all of our panelists. I just would love to say thank you so much for giving the time, sharing this valuable information. For those of you who are business owners on this call, this is a critical time for you. The resources are here to help you. Please, we are linking arms with you. So get out here and get the resources, tap in, get the information you need, but make the connections to get the services, the loan, and the grants that you need. It's available for you now.
Great, thank you. And we'll just give everyone the reminder, we're going to have the this program up on our website. We'll pass it on to Black Business Alliance, so they'll have it as well, and we'll make sure that you can tune in, pass it on to friends. If you think there's someone that should listen to this material, please get that information to them. We want everyone to be able to participate in these programs. We know this is going to be a long haul. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you again.